I am a teacher from Texas and I teach second grade. I just wanted to get on here and just share. Y'all have to excuse that. It is actually storming outside, but I have been really trying my best to try to get this video up and present it to you guys. So y'all will just have to excuse the thunder that you will probably hear throughout this video. But the most important thing is I'm getting this information out to you, so I apologize in advance for the thunder. So I want to get on here and just share just some things that I have learned. Let's see, this next school year, I'm entering into my 6th year of teaching in the public school system. And so that being said, I've taught fully for the past 5 years. Now I've taught pre-K, I've taught 1st grade, and I've taught 2nd grade. And I just want to get on here and just share with you some things that I have learned during my first 5 years of teaching. Now, I will go ahead and set a disclaimer out. This video will probably be more drawn towards student teachers or first-year teachers or upcoming first-year teachers or maybe the first 3 years of teaching. And so it may or may not apply to those of you that have taught 5 years or more. But if you can take something away from this, please do so. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to go ahead and mention is that you cannot compare. Do not compare yourself with other teachers and other colleagues. Let me give you an example. There was a time during my first year of teaching where I would feel like, I would hear another teacher doing this certain lesson with the same skill and standard that I'm using, but they're doing something a little different that's more creative, more fun. And yet, at the time, being a first year teacher, you don't have all the resources or all the abilities or even like the mentality quite yet to actually fully have these elaborate, creative, exorbitant activities. And so I would kind of feel bummed. I would kind of feel like I wasn't meeting up to the proper development that I felt like I should be as a teacher. I know that's silly because, again, it was my first year. How I'm supposed to know how to implement or start these lessons in such a fun, creative way. But it would make me feel like I'm not doing enough. And so I would constantly have that kind of mental stress throughout the school year where I feel this kind of pressure, like I need to make sure that I'm being up to par with all my colleagues. Now, these are, again, teachers with lots of experience, 20 plus years. They're going to have a lot of great answers and a great technique. So I just learned, it didn't take me long, but within my first year before the end of the year, I learned, you know what, Risa, you are doing enough for your kids. You're using the resources. You are applying what you know that you can teach them, educate them. You're meeting their needs academically. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's what matters. Are my kids mastering those standards and skills they need to? So I can't compare the way my classroom looks decoratively. I can't compare how I do my lessons compared to the next teacher next door. I have to be fully content on what I'm doing for my kids for that school year. Now, every school year, you're going to get different students with different needs academically, and so you're going to have to learn how to adapt as the year goes on. But just a reminder, you can't compare, you can't play the comparison game, especially when you're a teacher, because again, you're different, they're different, and you have different things to offer to the table. We all have different personalities. We all have different teaching styles. And so, you have to think there is no way that I can be exactly like Susie Q next door because I'm Risa and I have to do what Risa can do and Risa has the ability to do, and that's always enough. So if I can give you advice for the first thing is do not compare yourself with other teachers and other colleagues. Okay, so another thing that I have learned during my first 5 years of teaching is it's so important to have some kind of organizational system in place in your classroom. What I mean by that is so important to be organized in some capacity with what you have. Organizing your student files, organizing their school supplies, your school supplies, organizing curriculum, organizing lesson plans, organizing your grade book, organizing communication between your parents, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But it's so important to have some kind of organizational system in place in your classroom where it's easy for you to navigate, it's easy for you to find the things you need to help your classroom run smoothly. And this is actually also part of classroom management. And so if you can at least manage also not only behavior, as you will learn how to manage student behavior, but also learning how to manage like the administrative stuff, it will make your first few years of teaching run by so smoothly. Take each year one thing at a time and figure out, okay, what is something that I can improve with my organizational system in my classroom? Is it my files? Is it my student files? Do I not have a better system in place where I can organize things better? Should I make sure I have some kind of organizational system in place for student jobs? What about parent-teacher conferences? Do I need to make sure I have something set aside for that? Something that I like to do is I like to have each student, before even like meet the teacher, I like to have each student with their own separate Manila folder file. And so I'll write their name on that file, and that file is kept for work samples. It's kept for, documenting things, maybe behavior, academics, assessments. I like to have those kind of things in place, and I keep it in one filing cabinet. And another filing cabinet, I like to go ahead and organize everything that I'm teaching for the school year. Now, as a first year teacher, you can do this as your school year goes along. Let's say you're doing a unit on a life cycle of an insect. And so after you teach that unit, make sure you keep things in file so that way in the following year you can retrieve it out of that file, life cycle insect, and it's there. Does that make sense? So just make sure as you're thinking about it, and don't overwhelm yourself, as the year goes, each year at a time. Pick out another new skill, pick out another thing to focus on. Even in your classroom library, how are your kids going to check out books? How are they going to check in books? How are you going to have a system in place for them to understand and how your classroom library is ran? And so, again, these are also part of classroom management, which is very, very important, as you probably learned and know. But make sure you can think of some kind of organizational system. During the summer, of course, take a break, take some time to yourself. But when you're ready to start thinking about school, think about how you want to organize your classroom. So that's my second tip, is to have some kind of organizational or organized system in place in your classroom. Okay, so the third thing I've learned during my first 5 years of teaching is how essential it is to have a good relationship with your parents and guardians of your students. It is so important for you to start building that in the beginning of the school year. I cannot tell you how much better it is to phone a parent about a behavior or something academics, or to email a parent about something that I'm concerned about with their child. And, just the response from that parents at times, it makes things so much easier because we built some kind of relationship with each other starting at the beginning of the year. And so, you want to make sure your parents and your guardians know that you are a huge advocate for their child. I mean, why else did you get into teaching? You love kids. You want what's best for kids. You want kids to learn and grow up and master things and believe in themselves. And so you want that parent to know your heart for their child as far as a professional teacher. And so it is so again, important for you to make sure your parents know that you're there for them. Now, every parent's going to respond to you differently. Some parents are going to be very responsive to you and always contact you about different things, and, open to your suggestions, open to things that maybe they need to do at home, and some parents will not. But you know what? At least you're doing your part. Now, I do want to prepare you. It is so important to make sure you have, this goes back to organization, make sure you have some kind of way. I would suggest having maybe a binder or something to that effect where you have all of your students' information in one file. I like to keep a binder, and I like to use just these little basic dividers here, and I go ahead and I write a student's name on each divider, and this happens as soon as I get my class list. I mean, I just make it as soon as I know it's final, and each student has their own tab divider marked, with this, and behind that sheet I have that student information there. So behind that sheet, I have student information there, their phone number, parent contact information. I also like to keep some kind of log sheet, communication log, this is kind of a generic thing here, but it has something where I can write their name, the date, their phone number, email, and how they were contacted and the reason why. Sometimes you may want to use like some kind of piece of paper or post-it or something to include in the binder. But just in case something comes up, during a meeting or a parent-teacher conference, I can easily have that binder and I can easily discuss, well, on this date, this happened. On this date, we discussed this. This last parent-teacher conference was this. And that reminds me, it's also very important to schedule some kind of parent-teacher conference with your students as needed, as your school or district provides you to do. I would not want you to be in a pickle, excuse my vocabulary, in a pickle where a student is sent home a progress report or report card and there's a poor grade on it, and then parents seeing that's their first time seeing that particular grade. They didn't know that was going to happen. So you want to make sure you constantly contact your parents about the obvious things that you're concerned about. Make sure you keep that communication going. It'll be awkward for a parent to hear about something and they had no idea what was going on. So don't be afraid to talk to your parents, to contact them. If necessary, important things, just use your best judgment on that. So parent-teacher relationships are important with the guardians as well. That's what I mean by everyone. Make sure that you try to get things set up in that at the beginning of the year. It just makes it harder just trying to get things set up in the middle of the year or in the first few months of the school year, trying to get things set up. It just makes things just a lot better for you just to try to get what you can concerning that set up probably before the first day of school. It's just my suggestion. So that is something else that I learned during my first 5 years of teaching is parent communication is essential. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to talk to you about during this time is self-care. So the fourth thing is self-care. So it is so important for you to take care of yourself as a teacher. That is something that I learned the hard way, unfortunately. I was going like my first 2 years of teaching, getting there early, staying late, getting things done, getting home at a late hour on a school night, and then getting up early again. And it just ran my body down. I was just starting to get really tired. I was just not as effective as a teacher as I should be for my students. And I didn't like that. My kids, they deserve the best me. And so I learned, I gotta set a certain time during a day for me to not only be there on campus when I'm supposed to be there, but leave at a decent hour. And so it varies each year, so make sure that you even inform your parents. I know some of us like to use certain apps that enable us to still communicate with our parents through text. Well, make sure at the beginning of the year as well that you inform your parents of your hours, when you're available for conferences, when you're available for texts, even on some of those apps that alert your parents, when it's quiet hours for their child's teacher. So make sure that you do that and you stick to it. I personally wouldn't suggest giving my cell phone number out. Now, with everything that just happened with COVID, things are just a little different. But on a regular school year, I wouldn't suggest giving my cell phone out. Use your best judgment if you feel comfortable with that, or if you're allowed to do that to the parent, of course, not to the child, but to the parent. So taking care of yourself is important. Make sure you're eating good. Make sure you're getting some kind of exercise. If you like to work out and get exercise, it's so good for your body. Make sure you're sleeping good at night. Make sure you set a good, decent hour to go to bed and get your rest. Again, I learned this the hard way. I was going, and then during those seasons during the school year where it's flu season or strep going around or whatever, I would catch it because my body physically was not healthy. It was not healthy, and so unfortunately at times I would get sick, not often, but it could have been avoided, I feel like, for some extent, because I am a very clean person. I spray all the time in my classroom, disinfect all the time in before all the COVID, I was doing all these things already. And, I just learned, okay, this is not worth it. And again, my kids deserve, I call my students my kids at times, they deserve the best of me. So, keep that in mind as well. Do this for you and do this for your students. And, even like on times we're off, enjoy it. Try not to work so much. Again, try to figure out during the school day, how can you manage your time better in the classroom where you can get some grading done, you can get some things submitted where you're not having to stay after school so late. I know sometimes it's difficult as teachers because we want to get everything done in one day or within 1 week. And I'll just disclaim this now. You're not going to ever get everything done. It's just no way we can always get everything done. If you do, you're lacking some other area in your life, and that's really sad to me. That's really, really sad to me. So make sure you stick to things that you can do that's important, and make sure you're taking time for yourself. Self-care is not selfish. You have no reason to feel guilty. You work hard all day, you're with students all day, you put in your all, you deserve a break. We're not robots. We were not wired to be, on the go all the time like the bunny with the drum or the battery. We were not made to be like that. So please do not be hard on yourself if you want to take a break. If you feel like you want to go get a pedicure after school, go get a pedicure after school. If you want to go do takeout with some friends, go hang out with some friends after school. You need that. You need to take care of yourself. You need a mental break. I'm a huge advocate with good mental health and a huge advocate for rest. On Sunday evenings, instead of grading, if you can help it, just rest. Spend time with your family. Spend time with your spouses. Spend time with your children. Go take a short trip on a weekend. Wake up on an early Saturday morning, go take a drive. Go to the beach. Go do something fun. And so, go shopping, so make sure you take care of you, because again, we're people too. We need our breaks, and self-care is so important. So take care of yourself. All right, so I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful for you. If you were able to continue on this video until the very end, you are a rock star. So thank you for sticking around. This is actually a part 1 of a series of things I've learned in my first 5 years of teaching. And so I will do another video as well with different things. If you guys really like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. I would love to have some kind of interaction with you. Tell me where you're from. Tell me how many years you've been teaching. Tell me what you like about this video. Tell me about things you want to see. So thank you again for stopping by, and thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.